A lot of people use the analogy that Black Lives Matter is a movement. It is not a movement. When you're black, it is not a movement, it's a lifestyle. This is a walk of life. I like I don't like the word movement because unfortunately in America and in society, there ain't no movement for us. LeBron James. This is the voice of the lifestyle. Now let's look at the voice of the movement. We dismantle the patriarchal practice. We disrupt the prescribed Western family structure. This quote directly from Black Lives Matter movement mission statement. The words of the movement directly contradict what keeps black men, women, and children safe in this country. Fathers in homes keep families safe. Black men need to be present in their child's lives. Nothing in this world will keep black children safer than the nuclear family unit. When blacks were held in bondage, when they were segregated, and also when unjust laws were practiced upon them, all they had were their families, their villages, and their tribes. Today, I will convince you why Black Lives Matter is not a movement, but a walk of life. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marcus LaShawn Fergali. I am a Marine Corps veteran, I am a 4.0 student, and I am a mulatto man. As a son of a black mother and white father, I have always questioned where do I fall when it comes to Black Lives Matter. Am I black? My mother always told me I was a mulatto, which means a mixed child. Yet, the Marine Corps called me black. My school classifies me as black. And black is what my wife's family, who are white, describe me as. One thing I do know is that my life matters. My life mattered to the Marine Corps. My life matters to my school. And my life matters to my family. So inevitably, my black life matters. My purpose today is to convince you why Black Lives Matter is not a movement, but a walk of life. I will speak on a first-hand account from a 68-year-old woman who lived black in America. I will speak on current events and finally statistical data addressing the phenomenon which is Black Lives Matter. Let's dive into the first-hand account. I interviewed Josephine Sauls, 68, born in Elkhart, Indiana. I asked Mrs. Sauls, what was it like growing up black? Mrs. Sauls started off with a story from birth. She stated, often, we weren't allowed to be born in the hospitals. Usually, midwives would birth the children in the homes. Usually someone within the family. I asked Mrs. Sauls, what do you think of the Black Lives Matter movement, or is it a lifestyle? She exclaimed, it's not a lifestyle, it's a situation. I had one final question for Mrs. Sauls. Reluctantly, I asked her, have you ever experienced racism in your life? Surprisingly, Mrs. Sauls stated, I have never experienced racism. There are too many people with white skin who would and have shed blood for me. My interview with Mrs. Sauls shined a light on multiple aspects of my argument that Black Lives Matter is not a movement but a walk of life. She has lived nearly 7 decades on this earth and has never experienced racism. Her testimony concludes, a movement focused on racism is specific groups focused on the color of skin have multiple holes within their movement and their ideology. The fact that Mrs. Sauls dismissed the aspect of Black Lives Matter is not a lifestyle, but a walk of life, After hearing the first-hand account, I researched some current events that further dismantled the Black Lives Matter movement argument. According to a study conducted by the New York Times, recent protests peaked on June 6, when 500,000 Americans turned out in 550 places across the country. About 15 million to 26 million people in the United States have participated in demonstrations over the death of George Floyd in recent weeks. That is an insane number of people. Roughly 7% of all Americans participated in these protests. Unfortunately, 3 underlying factors explain the immense turnout: social media, conformity, and recency bias. If you haven't seen the murder of George Floyd on any social media platform, you must not be living in the modern world. The grisly video of a police officer suffocating a man to death was trending like an announcement of the next royal wedding. Politicians, celebrities, and influencers leapt on the bandwagon, making sure black people knew that they weren't racist and they were gung-ho for Black Lives Matter, regardless of what the movement actually may represent. If you weren't down with the movement, then you were racist. You were a bigot, and you did not care about black people. Yet I have a question. In 2018, when 7,407 black Americans were considered murder victims in the United States, where were the massive demonstrations? Black people made up half of murder victims in 2018, with 7,407 out of 14,123 murder victims reported, according to the FBI database. This means white Americans are killing black Americans, Hispanic Americans are killing black Americans, as well as black Americans are killing black Americans. It is a pandemic of death. Regardless of who commits the murders, when the movement of Black Lives Matter is nowhere to be found, this simple fact that black men, women, and children are victims of homicide disproportionately compared to other races proves the walk of life of black Americans is vastly more important and greater than the Black Lives Matter movement. I have addressed firsthand accounts, current events, and statistics on Black America and Black American lives. What will happen when the Twitter handles fade away? Or when there are no more posts on Facebook to share? Or when the newspapers get their next big story? The faces of these black men, women, and children in this country will still be black. The Black Lives Matter movement will fade off into oblivion. Yet, the fact that black lives matter will always be a tried and true fact. This is why Black Lives Matter is not a movement, but Black Lives Matter is a walk of life. Thank you for your time and your undivided attention.